Welcome back. It's section number 4 and we're closing the lesson now, and we're going to talk about action-reaction pairs. Okay? Now, action-reaction pairs, these are forces that when they are acting together, you can't have one without the other. So that's why we call them action-reaction pairs. Okay? Let me just make use of this diagram here to illustrate something. Here is a piece of string attached to a ceiling, and on it is an object with a mass m hanging. So here is an object. Now, for this object to be hanging there, obviously the object is exerting a force on the ceiling through this string here. Okay? And in the same way, or at the same time, simultaneously, the ceiling is pulling on the object upwards with a force. Okay, so we have an action-reaction force here. We've got a force that is pulling down on the ceiling due to this object, and the ceiling is also pulling upwards. Okay, now this one here is acting on the ceiling. Okay, the object is pulling down on the ceiling, so this one is acting on the ceiling. And this one here, it's a force that is acting on the object. Okay, so we've got an action-reaction pair here. If you look at the ceiling as the agent that brings in the action, then you will say the object is bringing the reaction. It doesn't matter. You can look at the object as the agent that is bringing in the action, then the ceiling will be the one that is bringing in the reaction in that way. So all I'm trying to say and show here is that when we talk of action-reaction pairs, we're talking about forces that are acting together simultaneously. It's two forces. One force acting on one of the object and the other force acting on the other object. One thing to add on that, you would see that we're talking about this force here is pulling. It's the same type of force. If this object is pulling on the ceiling downwards, the ceiling is also pulling on the object upwards. Okay, so it will be the same type of forces. If we're talking about an action-reaction pair of forces that are actually of the nature of of the electrical nature, here we'll be talking about electrostatic forces. You can't have an action-reaction pair where one force is of a particular nature and the other one is of a different nature. If we're talking electrostatic forces, the action-reaction pair for those two objects will be electrostatic forces. So the nature has to be the same. If we're talking about forces between objects due to their masses, which will be gravitational force, the action-reaction pair there will be gravitational forces. Okay? And therefore, that tells us that we can have different natures of forces acting together as action-reaction pairs. That is not possible. And for that reason, I have tried here to bring you some summary of what these forces, or what are the characteristics of action-reaction pairs. Okay? Obviously, we're talking of a pair, and therefore we're talking two. So we're talking about two forces that are acting together. These two forces, firstly, they would have the same magnitude. They would be of the same magnitude. Their sizes will be the same. Okay? And what is different about the two forces is that they act in opposite directions. So the two forces will be acting in opposite directions. Okay? And what we also need to know about these two forces, which is our action-reaction pair, here the two forces will act on different objects. In other words, you cannot have an action-reaction pair acting on the same object. The two forces should be acting on two different objects. Okay, they are the same kind of forces. Like I was explaining, if we're talking gravitational forces, it must be gravitational forces. Electrostatic forces, electrostatic forces. It can't be, you can't have electrostatic and gravitational being action reaction pairs. And lastly, and very important, is that these two forces act simultaneously. That is very important to note. And of course, on that note, we're bringing to the end the lesson for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Good luck in everything. Enjoy your questions as well. Bye-bye.